The birth of a child is, for most of us, a beginning. Yet the shape of that beginning can define the entire color of a life. This is the story of a child who, on the very first day of his life, was separated from his parents' arms, a journey through loneliness, anger, curiosity, and ultimately, the rise of an extraordinary genius. His name was Steve Jobs. This video will not only tell the story of the birth of a technology venture, it is the tale of a child's search for identity, of how the wounds of abandonment were transformed into motivation, and at the same time, a synthesis of creativity, a passion for aesthetics, and unshakable belief. Now, we travel back to those first days and the years that followed. Part 1. Birth and Adoption. Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in San Francisco, California. His biological mother, Joanne Skeeble, was a bright graduate student from a conservative Catholic family. His father, Abdul Fattah John Dowley, was a political science student from Syria. Their relationship, however, faced enormous cultural resistance. Joanne's family refused to accept her relationship with a Muslim immigrant. Unable to marry at the time, the couple decided to give their baby up for adoption. Initially, a wealthy family was set to adopt the child, but when they realized they wanted a girl, they changed their minds. At the last moment, Paul and Clara Jobs, a modest working-class couple, stepped forward. Paul was a machinist, and Clara worked as a bookkeeper. They couldn't offer wealth, but they gave Steve something far more valuable: love, stability, and encouragement. Years later, Jobs would insist, "Paul and Clara were my real parents." 1000%. Part 2. Childhood Curiosity. From the earliest years, Steve showed an unusual curiosity. He would dismantle radios and televisions, scattering wires and screws across the living room floor. While other parents might have scolded him, Paul encouraged it. In their garage, Paul taught Steve how to handle tools, how to pay attention to detail, and how to take pride in even the smallest craft. Paul often told him, "When you build something, make it beautiful, even if people won't see it." That principle of invisible perfection beauty in unseen details became the foundation of Apple's design philosophy. But Steve was not always easy to handle. In school, he was restless, mischievous, and sometimes disruptive. He was brilliant but bored, and teachers struggled to keep up with him. That feeling of being different, of not fitting into the system, would follow him for life. Part 3. Teenage Years and Meeting Wozniak. By the time Steve was a teenager, his curiosity had turned into passion. He spent weekends at Hewlett-Packard's Explorers Club, where he met engineers working on cutting-edge technology. It was here that he encountered Steve Wozniak, a shy, brilliant inventor who loved electronics as much as he did. Jobs and Wozniak became instant friends. They shared not only knowledge, but also mischief. Together, they built Blue Box's illegal devices that allowed people to make free, long-distance calls. For Jobs, this wasn't just fun, it was a revelation. He later said, "If it weren't for the blue boxes, there would have been no Apple." Part 4. College Dropout. In 1972, Steve enrolled at Reed College in Oregon, but tuition was expensive, and his adoptive parents had sacrificed greatly to send him there. Within 6 months, Steve dropped out. But instead of leaving campus entirely, he dropped in on classes that interested him, like calligraphy. That calligraphy class, seemingly useless at the time, later inspired the beautiful typography of the Macintosh computer. Jobs would reflect, "If I had never dropped in on that class, the Mac would never have had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts." During this time, Steve lived frugally, sleeping on friends' floors, collecting Coke bottles for money. and eating free meals at the Hare Krishna temple. It was a period of exploration, both spiritual and intellectual. Part 5. The Birth of Apple. In 1976, at just 21 years old, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak co-founded Apple Computer in Jobs' family garage. Their vision was simple but radical: make computers small enough for everyday people to use. Wozniak built the Apple I, and Jobs convinced a local computer store to buy 50 units. From there, the company exploded. The Apple II became one of the first mass-market personal computers. By age 25, Steve Jobs was worth $200 million and had appeared on the cover of Time magazine. But success came with challenges. Jobs was brilliant, but often difficult, demanding perfection from everyone around him. His intensity inspired some and exhausted others. Part 6. Triumph and Failure. In 1984, Apple launched the Macintosh, the first computer with a graphical user interface. The famous 1984 commercial declared, "You'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984. The Mac was innovative, but sales struggled at first. Conflict erupted between Jobs and Apple's CEO, John Sculley. By 1985, the board of directors forced Jobs out of the company he had founded. At just 30 years old, Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. He later admitted, "It was devastating, but it was also the best thing that could have ever happened to me. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life." Part 7. Next, Pixar and Reinvention. After leaving Apple, Jobs founded Next, a company focused on high-end computers for universities and businesses. Though Next computers didn't achieve huge commercial success, their software laid the foundation for what would later become Mac OS. At the same time, Jobs bought a small animation studio from George Lucas. That studio became Pixar. Under Jobs' leadership, Pixar released Toy Story in 1995, the first fully computer-animated film, and revolutionized cinema forever. Part 8. Return to Apple. In 1997, Apple was struggling near bankruptcy. In a dramatic turn of events, Apple bought Next, and Steve Jobs returned to the company he had founded. With him came a new vision, a new design language, and a new era. The iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, all born during this second era. Jobs became not just a businessman, but a cultural icon. Part 9. Illness and Legacy. But behind the triumph, there was tragedy. In 2003, Jobs was diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer. He fought for years, sometimes seeking unconventional treatments. On October 5, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away at the age of 56. His death shook the world. Millions mourned. President Obama called him one of America's greatest innovators. Yet his true legacy is not just in devices, but in the philosophy he left behind. Think differently, follow your passion, and never settle. Closing. As we come to the end of Steve Jobs' extraordinary journey, we are reminded of a simple yet powerful truth. Life does not have to begin perfectly for it to become remarkable. Jobs was not born into wealth or stability. He was not handed certainty or comfort. Instead, he was given challenges, abandonment, and uncertainty. But within those struggles, he found the spark that would one day ignite a fire of innovation seen across the entire world. His childhood could have broken him, but instead it built him. The walls of loneliness became the foundation of resilience. The absence of stability he became the source of his hunger to create. Steve transformed pain into power and rejection into redirection. He proved that where we start in life does not define where we can go. Every invention he brought to life, whether the Macintosh, the iPod, the iPhone, or the iPad, was not just a product. It was a message. A message to every child who feels unseen, every dreamer who feels unheard, and every soul who feels unworthy. Your story matters. Your vision matters. And with courage, you can change the world. Today, we hold in our hands the devices that connect us, inspire us, and sometimes even heal us. But beyond the screens and the technology, we hold something far more important, the reminder that even the smallest voice can echo across history. Steve's life is proof that being an orphan, being rejected, or being doubted does not determine the final chapter of our story. So as you listen to his story, take this with you. You are not defined by your past. You are not limited by your circumstances. And you are never too small to dream big. Like Steve Jobs, your struggles can become your strength, your scars can become your story, and your vision can become a gift to the world. Let his legacy remind us, hope is stronger than despair, creativity is greater than fear, and one determined soul can light up the darkness for millions. Be that light, carry forward the dream, and never forget your story is still being written. If this story moved you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories like this. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your feelings matter, and your voice deserves to be heard.